It's me, boyfriend slash girlfriend slash day friend's favorite content creator, and we're going to talk about censorship. Because, oh boy, does it seem like this is going to be the next grifter bait. The most recent game to fall under this is Dragon Quest. Too many dragon things coming up this year, but it was Dragon Quest. Specifically, the remakes for Dragon Quest 3 and 1 and 2 HD. There was an interview that happened at Tokyo Game Show with the creator and an editor for Jump Magazine. I think the editor for Dragon Ball, which makes sense because Akira Toriyama was the character designer for the Dragon Quest series. So I will play that clip for you right now.
あとすごい話題になってたそのコスチュームとか当時とそのままなのかどうなのかみたいなのがありましたよね。また。
まあね、いろいろ規制もあってね、露出してきちゃいけないとかね。
そこまあちょっとあんまり深掘りする気はないんですけど。いいのにだってフィクションだけどその中に主人公というあなたが入って冒険するっていうことでいいじゃないと思うんですけど違うんですかね。
なんですかね。よくわかんないですけどね。これについてはね。
ゲームだし、まあフィクションという自分の中のこうバーチャル体験でのノンフィクションだから楽しくければいいのにっていうふうに思っちゃいますけどね。
あんまり露出するとね年齢が上がっちゃうっていうね。全年齢じゃなくなってしまうっていうのがあったりとか、
ルールがやっぱなんか各国違ったりするんでね、広くどうと思うと一番厳しいところに合わせざるを得ないとか。
でも
当時そんなこと思わなかったですけどね。
コンプラっていう名のね、やっぱりねある種のねなんだろうな絶対心というべき、善の名を借りた悪みたいなのがあるよね。全員が不快感を覚えないなんてことはないわけ。だって不快なことを覚える動向でもいいわけよ。だって綺麗汚いとかさ善悪って人それぞれに感じ方があるわけじゃん。で物事はやっぱり根っこにあるのはやっぱり絶対やっちゃいけないことだけいくつかあってそれをさえやらなきゃあとはいいじゃないって、そういうのがないわけよ。だからやっぱり英米の方から来てるその宗教的な概念から来るその正教徒の考え方ってアメリカにあるじゃない。彼らのコンプラの考え方って本当ね狭い。でだから向こうでコミックス出す時に全部その年齢で区切ってやらなきゃいけない。少年ジャンプの漫画だったら13アップ13歳以上じゃないと出せない。私は全部リテイクでなきゃいけない。でそれを訴訟が起きるそのために保険も入らなきゃいけない。もうこんなねバカな国とねやるの本当めんどくさい。でそっから日本も悪影響を受けてやってるから。
主人公もね男女選べるんだけど、男女選ぶって書いていけないのね、タイプ1タイプ2なのね。
ね
えこれ男女って誰が一体文句言うんだろうと思うんだけどわからない。
So naturally, that last part is what people are really holding on to, at least the grifter side of stuff, the whole type 1, type 2. Now, ultimately, type 1, type 2 doesn't fucking matter. When he said, who cares about this? I don't care about it. A lot of people don't care about it. I think people who do care about it, though, are the ones who want to make that into part of the greater cultural war and saying that we can't even have men and women anymore if they have type 1, type 2, but no one cares about this. What I want to talk about, though, is just censorship in general when it comes to video games, because this isn't new. In fact, this isn't even new to this series. Forgive me if you're going on the wiki, but they have good information from time to time. So, you have censored wiki censorship, right? Dragon Quest II, Luminaries of the Legendary Line. It came out in 87 as a sequel to Dragon Quest. Due to Enix wanting to make this Western release more family-friendly, sexuality was toned down. All international releases are always using censored version. So what did they censor in this game? The scene that shows a woman offering a puff puff and then giving the player the ability to select yes or no was modified for the Western release. An uncensored version, if the player selects yes, the woman will give your character a puff puff. In the uncensored version, if she selects no, the woman will say, what's wrong with being an okama? Okama means homosexual. Yumini, in the Western release, she is asking you if she's pretty enough to be queen. If you select yes, she will say, perhaps the great prince of Kanak thinks so too. If you select no, she'll say, what's wrong? Coffins were removed, crosses were removed, the priest sprite was redesigned, crosses were removed from the secret passage in Harrigan's Castle. So, just in this series alone, they have been altering stuff to be released to Western audiences. Specifically, I'm going to be a little American centric here, to America, because as the video says, America is very weird when it comes to religion. Like if you put crosses on shit, they don't like it. We will read this article from Forbes. Well, I guess I will read it and you guys will skip along. So in the video interview, Katsuhiko Torishima and Yuji Horii about the Dragon Quest III remake, they very rightly criticized unnecessary Western game censorship. Oh, what's this? A journalist that's agreeing with you guys? Uh-oh. Okay, I'm done being that stupid. So the short version is that, okay, so this is the video that we saw before, but the short version is that some of the characters have their costumes changed to fit in with supposedly more accessible in the West, despite the fact that these character designs were from a game that was already released back in the 80s. What's especially interesting here is that gaming has had a long history of age certification related censorship that is tied to specific cultural norms, but that was recently streamlined and unified. To explain, in Germany, the USK rating system didn't like having games with red blood or people getting killed in them, so the blood was turned green and people into robots and zombies. Yes, that was very true. I believe that happened with Wolfenstein. They did a lot, and they also changed the obviously the Nazi imagery because it's illegal to have that in Germany, even if you're doing it from a historical perspective. Now, I'm gonna just call it IARC. IARC tends to apply more for digital releases, which would affect Dragon Quest III, as that would be going physical, but a unified age rating framework has broadly existed for the last decade or so. Unless Dragon Quest III was suddenly rated as a mature or adult game, which it hasn't been, then these changes aren't at all necessary and are coming from a place outside of the age rating setup. This is why both Torishima and Horii expressed their frustration over these changes for a Western audience is entirely justifiable. It should no longer be necessary, at least from an age rating standpoint. For me, the fact that Dragon Quest III was released back in 1988 and we're only now seeing changes to the game's character design is just stupid. As for the remake itself, it is entirely great. I played it this year's Tokyo Game Show and will be absolutely pick up upon release. So yeah, so here we go. We have a new ratings board on the West now, and it's called the Woke and DEI Board. They are the new religious zealots censoring everything. The Baptists and the religious conservatives in the 90s will be proud of them. This is the stupid person, right? But this is kind of what I'm getting at here. You have it to where there are these boards who are deciding what is and what isn't appropriate, right? And I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that people who are so far removed from the creative process should be the ones dictating what can and can't be sold. Granted, I do know there's laws that you have to follow, but still, I think that the creators should be able to make what they want to make without having to be so restricted into how they approach a topic, especially because, as we've seen in the past, this leads to some very unnecessary censorship, like what's happening with Dragon Quest III. But if we can go back to the video from earlier, I want to talk about the fact that this is woke, this is SBI, it's DEI. That's not what it is. This has 100% to do with America and its perception on things. So we're gonna go a little bit of history lesson, okay? I'm 34 years old. I'll be 35 in November. So I'm still in the target demo. But growing up, I watched anime. I still watch anime. I love anime. But watching anime was one of the first products to come from Japan to America that I was aware of. So I was hyper aware when I was watching Sailor Moon, and Sailor Neptune and Uranus were calling each other cousins. Mind you, this is the stuff that they were doing. You would see them, and they would be like doing stuff like this, or this with like the dream sequence stuff. They're holding each other arm in arm, making out, and they would say they're cousins. These are just cousins. I'm scrolling slowly because I don't want to get anything that would get me banned on here. But cousins, they're calling them cousins. They're not cousins. They're lesbians. They are full-on lesbians. You could literally type them kissing, and it wouldn't even be like fan art. It would just be like official stuff. Like it wouldn't. Like I mean, again, this is official. This is real. This isn't even fan art. Real kissing here. Like, this is what they were trying to pitch to me as cousins. This was pitched as cousins. These two. These were cousins in America. I think you get my point here, right? Not cousins. They were lovers, gay lesbian lovers. Sailor Moon had a lot of that too. In America, that didn't fly. Why? Because same-sex didn't fly in America. Just like even now, currently, people are upset about Mario 1000 Year Door because of what happened with Vivian, right? In the original release, Vivian was a trans person. But in the original American release, they weren't. But in the remake or the re-release of it, they used the original Japanese text and made her trans again. And people lost their minds. People were saying that, oh, they're forcing it. It's DEI again. It's the woke agenda. But that was the original intention of the creators. They wanted that character to be trans. Japan, again, no place is perfect, but Japan is more progressive when it comes to sexual, I guess, identities being allowed to be in children's media than America is. America barely lets people kiss if they're same sex for children's shows. So Japan in that regard was more progressive, but in America, we couldn't have that. So again, they're lesbian couples in Japan. They are cousins in America. Vivian's trans in Japan. She's not in America. And now she is again, because we have more of a, weird to say this because I know trans people who don't feel this way, but like we have a more progressive idea on gender identity now than we did back in the 90s or early 2000s. But if you think this is just all there is to it, no, there's way more. There's so much more out there. I mean, we can even do another different series. We can talk about The Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda's been censored to hell. Manji shaped third dungeon. I'm not going to go into detail as to why that was changed, but they also changed the Book of Magic, which was the Bible in Japanese version, explaining why its design had a cross on it. However, it was renamed due to religious censorship at the time. That's going to be a trend, religious censorship at the time, okay? The palaces in the game were actually referred to as temples in Japanese version of the game, explaining the presence of idols as well as the design of palaces resembling the Parthenon in Greece. Similar to the Book of Magic in the previous game, the name was changed during localization due to religious censorship at the time. It wasn't until Ocarina of Time that the word temple was used outside of Japan. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, was originally called Legend of Zelda Triforce of the Gods, but was changed for its US release to avoid any religious controversy. Martha the Mermaid originally lost her top and dove into the water to hide her apparent nudity when Link attempted to come near. However, this edited out in various localizations to have her lose her necklace, presumably to make the game kid-friendly. So you're seeing a trend here, right? Like and not just for Christianity. In Ocarina of Time, the original Gerudo symbol, a crescent moon and star, was changed due to its similarity to the Islamic emblem. Contrary to popular belief, the change first occurred during its Nintendo GameCube release and not present in any official Nintendo 64 cartridge. However, the original emblem can still be seen, either as a leftover or an Easter egg, in some releases. The Fire Temple music was changed. That one I knew from memory. But like you'll see, like there's been in almost every Zelda game. So what's the point of this? Why am I been yapping this entire time? It's because I want you guys to understand that things get censored for a multitude of reasons, right? Most of them primarily have to do with money. If you want to make money in this market, you got to do what we want. I'm part of the YouTube partnership program. If I want to make money, I got to make sure I abide by their rules. But people are taking this as a, this is why wokeness bad. This is why diversity bad. This is somehow Sweet Baby Ink's fault. And that's obviously not the case. We've had a long history of censorship in this country, especially coming from external sources, but even within. If you want to talk about, let's just say Avatar, for example, Legend of Korra. you will hear how the writers and creators were fighting tooth and nail to even have Korra and Asami kiss. And like what, 2018? We are so puritanical in this country where people kissing, if they have the same gender, is a no-no for children. But in children's shows, people kiss all the time. You have little boys and little girls kissing all the time, and that's okay. But if it's girl, girl, boy, boy, wrong. If another country does that and being here, they'll change it like it didn't before. That's censorship. That is the restriction that they're talking about in that video I showed you with the interview. That is what they're talking about. They hate the fact that they have to, abide by these restrictions because it ruins their creative output, right? But if, let's say, and we know this is gonna be true, but let's say that they released a rated E for everyone game, rated E for everyone, and they had women in there, and they had just big naturals, and wearing like micro bikinis. It's just the human body, which isn't inherently sexual. If that was in the game, I bet you the same people who are talking about how the remake, they got rid of the skin, they would be furious to see that in the children's game. Oh my God, they're trying to groom our children. Imagine if there was a guy in a Speedo. And they're like, oh, see, this is the woke agenda. The LGBTQ is grooming our kids. They're putting us in the kid game. And I know this to be true because when there was a glitch in a Call of Duty game that had the trans pride flag colors put onto a bullet, they were literally saying they're trying to push agenda by transing people with bullets. In a rated M game, mind you, where they could do that if they wanted to, by their ratings alone. They could have absolutely transing bullets, but they made that into a controversy. These people are here to seek controversy. They're not here to actually talk about censorship and its harmfulness when it comes to the creative outputs and creative integrity. They don't care about that. Because again, if they did care about that, they'd have been happy that Vivian was actually trans in the 1,000-Year Door. They weren't. They only care if it matches with their current sensibilities. If you censor anything that might be religious, they'll throw a fit. But if you censor something to do someone's sexuality or ethnicity or anything else they consider to be woke, they'd be happy with it. They'd be ecstatic. That's why you should not listen to these people when it comes to topics like this, or really, truly, any kind of topic. They're not genuine people. They don't want to engage with you. They didn't try to give you a bigger scope in how censorship has been affecting video games for decades. They look at one thing and say this one thing is the reason why everything's bad. And I will never do that. You can trust me on that. I will never look at just one thing and say this is the one thing that's happening that's making everything bad. I will look at a bunch of evidence. And if I see something, a trend emerging, I'll talk about that trend. But I just want to talk about that because ultimately censorship does kind of suck. It does kind of suck. I understand that there are different countries with different rules and they want to preserve their fabric of their society, right? But what does that preservation look like if you are censoring out people's identities? If you are changing people's backgrounds? If you are not allowing the characters to really be their character? Because again, taking us out of America, other countries exist. There are other countries where a game that was rated like T for teen here would be banned. I mean, hell, we just read the article about how in Germany you couldn't even have blood. And in Japan, where a lot of these games come from, they have a stricter sense when it comes to gore and violence than Americans do. So again, every country is different. And it's all about finding that balance. And I do believe, though, that there is a line you should not cross. As mentioned in that video, there is like a cardinal sin, like everyone knows what not to do for the most part. But outside of that, I do think you should be allowed to explore more. I think it does us disservice when we think that children can't handle certain topics or view certain things and not understand what's happening. I think that's extremely harmful. Going back to anime, I also watched One Piece growing up. I say growing up because One Piece has been around since dawn of time. But also, there was a 4Kids version of One Piece. And that version of One Piece is so inferior that I didn't watch One Piece for a decade after that because I thought it was dog shit. But they were doing the same thing they did with Pokemon, kidifying every possible aspect of it to the point where it's just diluted. Pokemon got it pretty easy because it's mostly about battling with monsters, so they got rid of references to like uniquely Japanese stuff. If you remember the infamous jelly donut scene, that you know I'm talking about. But for One Piece, they couldn't do that. One Piece, it was pretty part and parcel that the series does have very heavy themes at times. That's kind of the whole point. It's a huge leftist fucking fantasy about fighting an oppressive government and showing the evils of those in power and what they're willing to do in order to maintain that power, right? Slavery, murder, torture, all that happens in One Piece. And I'm just scratching the surface. But the 4Kids version didn't do that. They censored everything to the point where women's cleavage, Miss Wednesday, I won't give any spoilers later, but her cleavage was completely censored. And this is not me being a gooner, but it's me knowing anatomy, and that people who have breasts, especially those with ample naturals, do have cleavage, and they got rid of it because kids can't understand boobs. Kids who grew up most likely being breastfed can't understand what boobies are. Like, that's weird. But that's the same mentality being carried on when you look at these censorship when it comes to releasing games in certain areas, or releasing manga, or comics, or movies, right? It's all different depending on the area, but it has nothing to do with wokeness. Like, do you think that people day to day are being asked, hey, Dragon Quest 3 remake is coming out. Here's the costume design. Pick which one you like, and they're all picking the one with the shorts? No, because they don't make that choice. The company makes that choice. Now, whether they're pressured internally, that's a different story. But the company makes that choice. I didn't make that fucking choice. It was up to me. I don't fucking care. That's not important to me at all. But you're gonna find these grifters trying to make it seem like everyone in the world who leans left or who talks about Jesus Christ, inclusion and equity, all of them are the reason why this is happening. And not because there's been a history of this happening to games, to media entering this country for decades. It's like, man, you have the internet. You have the internet where you can check shit out before you make a statement, and they do this. I don't get it. I don't get it. I guess it's just for money. I guess they just do this for money.